So we are coming to the close of another season within the Christian year. Today is known as the last Sunday of ordinary time, but when was time ever ordinary? So let's just call it Pentecost. Color's green. We begin the liturgical year again next week with the first Sunday of Advent. We are also bringing to a close a series where we have been wrestling with what batteries, what power sources are required to animate this ancient tradition that to so many of us over the years has grown worn and tired and often abusive and or meaningless altogether. So, the first week we talked about the importance of having somebody remind us of the story. So we talked about my role as midwife to constantly looking for ways to tell the story that renews that ancient invitation to become the peaceable kingdom. And then we talked about the role that diversity plays. Because if we're all the same, then what do we have to teach anybody about anything? And then we talked about the role that the circle of friends plays. And last week we heard some amazing stories of people coming to this place, hearing the invitation to be part of a circle of friends from a myriad of different stories, yet all light bearers, born of a sacred flame. And today we're going to be talking about this property. This property that we have received. It's bigger than the building. It includes the labyrinth. And what is the role of this sacred space in fueling and calling us forward? You'll remember that we made a big decision about 7 years ago, and we decided that we were going to transform this building so that it could be a means to our living out of a vision, not an impediment to our living out of a vision. To date, that might be the most courageous thing we've ever done. I think there are bigger things in front of us. So, I'm going to read to you from excerpts from Moses of Exodus. Moses' encounter with the burning bush, with sacred fire, with sacred ground, and then it is such a privilege to invite Roz Bound, a good friend of ours, to come and share her reflection as somebody who provides leadership for other liturgical communities to come here and also experience and extend this as sacred space. Moses saw a bush that was on fire, but it was not burning up. This is strange, he said to himself. I'll go over and see why the bush isn't burning up. When God saw Moses walking toward the bush, he called him by name, and Moses answered, I'm here. God replied, don't come any closer. Take off your sandals, because the ground on which you are standing is holy. I am the one who was worshipped by your ancestors.
Vicky and I have been watching The Crown on Netflix of late. I'm sure some of you have been seeing it. And I've been struck by not just the power of the position, but the power of place with some of the buildings, especially the Castle of May at the end of the series. I'm not giving you a spoiler. But there's something about the building that draws you in, even though it's on a screen. I'm going to try and take you on a little journey here to see what I mean by power of place. Winston Churchill, segue from The Crown, Winston Churchill said, we shape our buildings. Thereafter, they shape us. How is this building that shelters us right now, how did we shape it? With mortar or tiles, with wood, with a floor we put in walls, we put on a roof. But there's so much more than the 2-3-dimensional world that we live in. There's so many more dimensions that we don't even know about yet. Is it shaped by what we do here? Most of us come to worship or to gather with friends. We come to play music. We come to work. For some, it's a place to actually survive, a place to be safe or to hide. But how does this building shape us? And how do we shape it? Do you remember the game we played as children? This is the church. This is the steeple. Open the doors, and there are the people. They don't go away. Whenever you open those doors, there they are. There you are. There are the people who have been here for many, many, many years. This building is filled with us. Always. It's filled with us even when we're not here. It's filled with our breath. It's filled with our thoughts, our words, our deeds. Filled, if you will, with all the backstories we bring, our histories, our ancestors. And it's filled with memories. That is the power of place. Buildings hold memories. Everything that has happened anywhere adds to the resonance of that space. Resonance, the quality of evoking a response. When we walk in here, we feel that resonance of inclusion. We feel that resonance of warmth, even if we're alone. This space, and I'll include it wide to include the labyrinth and the land around the church, it creates a container that holds the memories of all the rituals that have ever taken place here, and before here existed. Rituals are the habits that are built up over generations, mundane or ornate, silent or vocal, personal and collective. Rituals and words and actions not only in this building but on the land on which it was built, of those that came before us and those that came before them and the first people. All those memories are held in this container, and they reverberate back to us, to shape us. As we walk the labyrinth, paint the mandala where every brushstroke is a sacred offering. Rituals where vows are witnessed and honored. Whiskey tasting where words spoken and sips taken seal the work. Healing, speakers, films, drumming, shawl blessings, coffee feasting, music. Oh, the music. The building holds the music and it holds the memories. The walls, always covered by creativity, offered from and given back to the divine, also echo with sounds of children, learning to grow up in a difficult world, given sanctuary for a few hours a week, young girls gaining strength in their own lives just as the feminine needs to rise. We stand on their shoulders. They are the foundation down here. We stand on their shoulders as one day they will stand on ours. Let me tell you a story. There was a parish church in my grandparents' town, a church we didn't attend. When we visited the grandparents, we went to High Anglican in the morning and Baptist in the afternoon. But this 14th century church was in a churchyard that lay between the two grandmothers' homes. One grandmother was very disliked by the other, which was a source of great conflict for my mother. So every morning, under the pretense of shopping, my mother, with me in firm tow, would escape her mother's house, run across town through the churchyard to her mother-in-law's house for a cup of tea. And then we'd turn around and dash back, where she would make her own mother's lunch, the grandmother from whom we kept the secret. A few years ago, I entered that church for the first time in well over 40 years. Walking in, I began to cry. I expect you felt that when you've entered a large cathedral. I sit here and weep when I come here. Just the sounds, the feelings. That overwhelming feeling of sacred space. It was as if the stone walls reached out to me. They seemed to envelop me with a love so deep it touched my core. I could breathe it in. The church remembered. It remembered the little child who tried to comfort her mother when she sat for a few minutes to gather herself, to breathe. It remembered when I watched her cry in exhaustion at trying to keep both mothers happy. How I searched the eyes of the statues for some connection, smelled incense, heard echoes of prayers. The church knew me. And when I returned, all those years later, it remembered. That experience began my learning that while memory is inherent in nature, I believe it's also apparent in hitherto thought of to be inanimate objects. Let me explain. Rupert Sheldrake is a biologist and an author. He meets science with spirituality in a brilliant way, and he introduced the term morphic resonance about 30 years ago. There's memory in that field outside our bodies, the energy field. Sheldrake says when a particular organizing system, and we are an organizing system, when it ceases to exist, like a snowflake melts, an atom splits, an animal dies, that organizing field disappears from that space. But the morphic fields do not disappear. They reappear when physical conditions are appropriate, and they create a resonance, a response, a kind of echo. A mysterious memory effects can occur, as when we weep in sacred space. I actually saw this happen when I visited the site of my old high school. Long torn down, buildings gone, but on this space, this field that was left, were many, many poppies. A gentleman that was walking there explained to me that when a building is torn down and gone, poppies will reappear. They remember. That was holy ground. I felt that in my own house when it welcomed me with open doors. And then it shunned me after I moved away for a year. It took me a year to woo it back, to have it back in my confidence. And then it shone so brightly on the day we sold it, as if to say, look how... fall off my ears. Always. How's that? Is that it? Yeah. I don't know why. I've got to figure that out one day. Can you hear me? Yeah? Thank you. While the refugee camp in Calais and now in Kenya is being torn down, I wonder about the resonance that is going to linger over that vast space, built up by the memories of fears and of hope, of desperation, the rituals of birth and death that took place in those refugee camps, loving care offered in support, and the community that grew up so strong in such a desperate time. The buildings built on that land will forever hold that resonance. And people living or working there, unless they understand, will never know why they feel certain ways or why they have a certain response to that space. Christopher Alexander wrote in a book that a site will tell you its secrets. Those secrets forever linger there, just like the winds that blow over the trenches in France and Belgium. And there the poppies grow. Holy ground. We draw on this memory, but we also contribute to it. This church is full of people, like all of you, that bring your daily stuff here. People like Lynne and her vibrant energy, Evelyn and her dedication, musicians, the cleaners, Phil and his photographs, all contribute to the abundance of love and energy as your energy adds to this resonance. It is you who echoes back to you. You, years in the future, will have added to that inherent memory held in this building, shaping those who walk here then. And that has to be truly sacred. We're soon reaching the shortest day of the year, December 21st, winter solstice. Since 2012, women and men have gathered in this space to celebrate the solstices and the equinoxes, the turning of Mother Earth's wheel from season to season to thank her for her promises fulfilled, and to give intention for the time to come. And as with every group that meets here, we too contribute to the resonance of this space, honored and grateful to do so. When we're here, we create a circle in these walls. We take the chairs and we make a big circle for about 50 people. We call in the elements from their directions. We call in air from the east and fire from the south, water from the west and earth from the north, spirit from the center, where heaven meets earth, and where we gain our roots and our wings. And we're very conscious that we're calling in creativity and emotion, intention and wisdom. We sing, we make music, we share, we promise, we seal our work, and we feast, just like we do here on Sunday mornings. And in the end, when we bid farewell to the goddess, to the directions and the elements, and to the ancestors we invited in. You know, it's a very crowded room. Those dimensions I was talking about, it's a very crowded room. We say, go if you must, stay if you will. So those elements that made us from stardust, that formed our bodies and our world, those elements that accompany us every day, air, earth, fire, and water, and spirit, are also part of this resonance that becomes deeper every time we enter in. When we arrive to prepare for the ritual, I always shiver. The power is so tangible. And when I turn out that last light, I always say thank you to the building. And it hears me. It remembers. It knows. Yep, we're in not just a building, but we're in a sacred container that holds the memories, the words and deeds of those who have ever walked this space and continue to do so. This is indeed holy ground that doesn't need a single creed. At the end of any gathering here, the circle is opened, but it is not broken, because sacred intention and memories will remain, and building secrets will always echo back in the resonance here forever.